I did a lot of winning when I was in my 50s. I probably won about 45 tournaments in my first 8 years, at least 45.
So raise your glass, even though he's not the best, but at least he made the top 5.
Welcome to another edition of the Night Gossip. We're here with Lenny, Hall of Fame bowler for Florida, and helping me out again is Dennis. We appreciate you, Dennis, coming on. Hey, Lenny works at Bowler's Mart.
Yep.
And that's in Leesburg Lanes,
Mm-hmm.
where we have our league play. We've had there for about 2 years. Just a little bit about your career. So you're in the Hall of Fame in Florida.
Yeah, I've been the Orlando City Hall of Fame, and then about 7 years ago, I got inducted into the Florida State Hall of Fame.
Okay, and what do you have to do to get in that?
It's my accomplishments. I have over, at that time, I had over 40 perfect games. I've won 2 or 3 state awards, and then I had probably over a dozen 800 series. So it's all your accomplishments of what you've done over the years.
And how long have you been bowling?
I've been bowling for about, well, let's see, I'm 72. I started bowling when I was 8 years old. By the time I was 14, I was already in men's league, never went out for any school sports. The thing that got me started was I met a professional bowler in my late teens, a guy named Bill Miller. And I was a 160 average bowler. He gave me a couple of lessons. I went up 20 pins in average, and away I went. And then he was the first one that got me competed in bowling tournaments. You know, I'm back in the 70s, you know, I'm working in my dad's garage, and I was making $125 a week, and I won one Sunday afternoon. I won my first tournament. I won $500. I won a whole month's paycheck in one afternoon. And believe it or not, I didn't cash a check for a week because I couldn't believe you could make that kind of money bowling.
How many games do you have to bowl to win a tournament?
So I bowled between Thursday morning and Friday afternoon. I bowled 33 games. So,
My arm would have fell
but
off.
my endurance was real good back then because that's what I lived for. I always enjoyed sports. I like baseball, anything to do with throwing, you know. And bowling always came easy. It was just a fun way of bowling, you know.
Now, what was the most frustrating part? Like, do you remember, like, was it trying to go from 180 to 200? Was it go to 200? What was, there's a step. Was there a step?
There's a big thing because when I started bowling, they didn't have reactive bowling balls. Okay, back then it was all rubber and plastic. And you didn't bowl on synthetic lanes. You bowled on wooden lanes, wooden lacquer, you know, and stuff like that. So over the years, during the 60s and 70s, I bowled on wooden approaches and then wooden lanes. And then the 80s came and they changed the finish of the lanes. They went to a urethane finish because for fire hazards and stuff like that. So then they created a different kind of bowling ball for the urethane bowling balls, you know, for the lanes there. So they came out with urethane bowling balls. And then the synthetics didn't come out to the late 80s, early 90s is when the synthetic came out. And that's a whole different game. And then they came out with the reactive bowling balls. And the reactive bowling balls are so much softer and everything than the balls were years ago. So it was always easier for the balls to hook.
Did you hook a lot when you were younger, or did you change when you were able to hook the ball?
Being left-handed, no, you couldn't hook the ball back then because the surfaces back then were pretty hard. And when they oiled the lanes back then, when they first started, they didn't have oiling machines. They used a bug sprayer. And the guy would actually go out. Guy actually got out and land, and then they dragged the lanes, and that's the way we started in the early 70s when the first oiling machine came out. And people actually came because they couldn't believe there was actually a machine oiling the lanes. Yeah, the machine only oiled the lanes. It didn't strip the lanes. The machines they have nowadays oil and strips the lanes at the same time. So back then they would only strip the lanes once a week. I mean, if you averaged 180, you were bowling really good back then.
Now, how long have you been down at Leesburg Lanes?
5 years.
5 years. So in the 5 years, have you seen it change?
Well, just the amount of bowlers. I mean, we're up to about 1,500 league bowlers now. And since they built this section of the villages, there's a lot more people coming.
It's so convenient for us here. We're 4 miles down the road. Did you have him put your holes in your ball?
Yes.
Do you have to go to any classes for anything to learn how to drill holes? I mean, is there anything out there?
A lot of trial and error over there. I've been doing this for 32 years, so
I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
I've been doing it for 32 years. I always hung around pro shops even back in the 70s.
Now, every weekend you were bowling in tournaments?
Yeah.
So that was your passion?
Well, my thing was, you know, I got married young. I raised my family. So when I was going to turn 50, I was going to bowl the senior tour is what I wanted to do.
And is the senior tour 50 years
50
old?
years old. And my last year, I had a regular routine when I was 49. I'd get up every morning and I'd walk 3 or 4 miles every morning. I'd work an 8-hour shift and practice 2 or 3 hours every night after work. When I went to a tournament, I couldn't afford to be a donator. My goal was the worst I was going to do was break even. And I was very fortunate. My first year as a senior, I made over $50,000 bowling that year. That year, we were gone 50 weekends out of the year, traveling from coast to coast.
What are the purses like?
I could bowl the Masters and the U.S. Open as an amateur. And I did that, and I was very fortunate. I made, first place in those 2 tournaments was around $20,000. The other tournaments were $5,000. All the tournaments were a $500 entry fee. At the Masters and U.S. Open, if I made the first cut, I tripled my money. When you're bowling the regular event, you had to make the top 5 to make any kind of money. I probably won over 60 tournaments over the year.
Now that the villagers are down there, and it sounds like it's a packed house. And you, by the way, you need to go see Lenny because he's very friendly, very knowledgeable, and he'll help you with your game. He'll take a look at how you're bowling, and he'll try to give you a ball that fits what you're looking for.
We try to.
Yeah, you do a great job, and that's why we only have great people here. We wouldn't.
No duds.
No duds here. But I got to ask you, what poundage?
Well, that's the biggest thing. That's the thing. We when somebody comes in, first time bowlers, the biggest thing we tell them to do is to go out and try the different house balls, different weights. Because as you get older, a lot of things change. It used to be years ago was 10% of the body weight.
I would need a 24-pound ball.
The weight of the ball,
my body weight.
Scott, let's be real here.
the weight of the ball controls the arm swing, and when the bowling balls are too light, they're actually harder to control. So the heavier they can handle, the straighter it keeps the arm swing.
You're right. It's going to sway a little bit.
Sure.
I get that.
Yeah, and if you do the fundamentals the proper way, the ball's going to feel lighter. If you take the ball and you drop it first before you pull it back, it's going to feel heavier. But you want to imagine there's an imaginary bar, and you want to push the ball up over the bar to let the ball swing.
So when I'm doing this, I'm thinking of a bar up here.
Yep.
Kind of throw it over the bar.
Just a little bit over the bar and let the ball swing by itself. Some people don't do that. They just drop it right away. So now they have to muscle the ball. So they go, oh, that ball feels heavy. But when they push it the right way, the tighter the holes are, the less you squeeze the ball, so the lighter the ball's going to feel. But that's the biggest thing is the weight of the ball and given the fundamentals. We have a guy named Jack that gives out lessons, which always helps. I have an app on my phone. I take videos of you and I break it down and show you what you're doing wrong. And
if I'm a 150 average right now, I don't know. Well, it's maybe a 140. But what can I do? What can someone like me go to a 160 other than practice? Is it just practice?
Well, how many games a week do you bowl?
3.
That's not a lot. I used to.
I drink before I go.
That don't help either.
Visiting the moose on the way to there.
That
It's
don't
so
help.
convenient, though.
No,
Buddy.
don't help
My
either.
God.
Well, many years ago when I bowled once a week, and if I found something that would work, I would actually write a note and I'd stick it in my shoe. So the following week when I was putting my shoes on, I'd pull that note out.
We bowl 3 games in our league.
You should use your 2 free games they give you.
I know.
You should do that. If you want to get better, you have to practice. I mean, how often do you play golf?
Oh, very little, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know. I'm not.
it's the same thing. I mean, it just doesn't happen overnight.
But at least he made the top 5. Thanks to him, we've got the best league to play in. It's not a boast, just a toast to number 5.